And now for our first roundtable of the evening, entitled Mentorship. What is it and how does it happen? Please welcome Charles Ash, Thomas J. Cedoz, the Honorable Lita M. Popke, the Honorable Michael Warren, Linda Watson, with moderator Linda Roelans.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Don't be shy. Come sit down if you want. Don't be shy.
Heckle.
Welcome to the first roundtable of the evening. We've got two of our speakers zooming in. So Linda Watson and Judge Warren are zooming in with us. I don't see them just yet. I think they're going to get them up on the screen here for us so everybody can see each other. Judge Warren wanted to be here in person, but just so everybody knows, he's not here in person because he has a conflicting situation in terms of driving because he's running for Michigan Supreme Court Justice. So everyone get out the vote later on. Go Judge Warren. Okay, so let's start off and discuss the topic of mentorship, which fits nicely into our theme of the law firm as a business. So our first question, which I'm going to throw out there to Judge Popke, what should mentorship look like? For example, should the mentor be inside or outside the law firm? Where do you find your mentor?
Well, interestingly, I basically solicited myself to be on this panel. And so that's a nice segue to the whole concept of mentorship, because I was talking to Mark and David Hance, giving him a shout out because he's not a speaker tonight. Where is he? But the lights are super bright.
We turn it down.
But in terms of mentorship, I think that it depends on which end of the spectrum you're on. Are you the one that wants a mentor, or are you the one that wants to mentor someone? And I think we focus most of our comments, Linda, on how young lawyers can be mentored and the importance of being mentored in their career. And so I think the initial question is, how should they approach being mentored? So I think they can either reach out to someone in their law firm, but again, I think being affirmative about the whole issue is what's really important. And reach out to someone and say, hey, I really would like a mentor. I would really like to have you assist me in building my career, building my contacts, or you can reach out to someone outside your law firm if you know someone who is a good lawyer and who has a lot of contacts. But I think the most important thing really is to be assertive in trying to find someone to help you.
Thank you, Judge Popke. Does anyone else have a follow-up to that about what should a mentorship look like?
Sure. Linda, I would, can you hear me? Yes, no?
Oh, yes. Yep.
You can hear
Linda,
me.
I think we've got, Linda first, then Charles. Go ahead, Linda.
I would just say, what should a mentorship look like? It can be formal or it can be informal. It can be inside your firm. If your firm has a mentorship program and you're a newer lawyer, I say take advantage of it. And you don't stop there. Ask for informal mentors. I know that I've been approached on several occasions for people who want to just have an informal mentorship relationship. And those have worked out really well. I know I've sought out informal mentors throughout my career. So both inside the firm and outside. So, I would really advise people, this is your career, take agency of it and take control. So that'd be my advice.
Thank you, Linda. Charles, is the mic going for you?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, go ahead.
I'd echo those points in the sense of someone outside the firm. The law firms try to get people into mentor relationships with the idea being, we're going to help and support you in your future practice. But then you get into the practice and you realize the problems our clients face are very complex. They're multifaceted. The organizations don't necessarily view them the way the lawyers view them. And I think it's critical for younger lawyers to get the perspective of what it's like being on the business side of these legal problems. and the way that communication can be effective with business people, the way that you kind of learn about, how they process the information you give them. I think so that you can better, as you get more senior and you're more responsible for those relationships and giving that good or bad or whatever advice, and letting them know what's going on. Absolutely critical to get that outside perspective. So I'd encourage the young lawyers in the room here, don't just settle for your firm's program. It's probably good, but there's so much more to learn from our clients and from business people out in the community who are happy to help you.
Thank you, Charles. And that is a great segue actually into our next question, which I would like to throw to Judge Warren and have him start this one off. Judge Warren, can you talk about what are the benefits? What are those benefits of a mentor-mentee relationship? What makes it all worthwhile?
Well, thank you. And I just want to apologize for having to do this virtually with this last minute conflict. But first off, I would emphasize for those of you that have been practicing for a long time and maybe are not mentors, that you should really consider it, because I think the best way of learning is teaching, because you need to know what the heck you're talking about. And mentorship, mentoring someone, I think helps you mature and think about how to be a better practitioner as well as a better person. So having somebody under your wing changes your orientation a little bit. So I think this is a two-way process. Obviously, having a mentor can be tremendously rewarding to see someone who you might admire or has a great deal of experience, has been through, been there, saw that, 25 more times than you have. And to be able to tap into that free advice and to not have to reinvent the wheel every time a certain issue comes up or a certain problem arises, the ability to maneuver with some experience well beyond your years, I think is very, very valuable. And then on the other side of it, and then they can, there's the soft things like, how do I get business? What programs are worth me going to, like this one, what's worth it, what's not, how to use your time well, how to manage relationships. I think it's those soft skills that can be very valuable. And then from the mentor's standpoint, having someone that you can ask to help if you have a certain project that you can trust and confide in, I think having that ability go both ways, it can be very rewarding and instrumental.
Thank you, Judge Warren. Looks like Judge Popke has a follow-up.
I think that the people who are mentoring younger lawyers also need to recognize the benefit that has for their law firm and their practice. So a thought just came to mind. There was a lawyer that I knew that I had known for years and years, and all of a sudden he started bringing this one young woman lawyer from his law firm by whenever he came into court. And he'd say, I'd like you to meet Melissa Cox, if anybody of you know who she is. And so he would bring her by, he would introduce her to her. And as the years evolved, Melissa tried a case in front of my court, and when I was in the family bench, and she was fabulous. More years go by, she's been developing this relationship. And some other judges and I were trying to think who would be a great addition to the Wayne County Circuit Court as a judge. Melissa Cox. And we approached her and we said, Melissa, we think you would be a great addition to our court. Why don't you think about running? Melissa ran, she won, and a few years later again, now she is the presiding judge of the family division. So I think you have to think as a mentor long-term about what mentoring someone can do for your firm, for them, for your practice, and for your entire network.
Thank you, Judge Popke. Any other examples of benefits, mentor or mentee side? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I tend to be, I'm on the younger side, so I'm more on the mentee side. And what I found is, we have first years coming in and, you try and pass that on. But when you're trying to be get mentored. It's a very active process. And, it is kind of a transactional relationship because we are, all attorneys are extraordinarily busy. And so as a mentor, it's important because when you start providing value, you get a lot more out of it. And you start getting a lot better mentorship opportunities. At my current firm, I was assigned a mentor. That assignment was, we never really, it was during COVID. We never actually met in person. But I was in the office every day with one of my, a partner who, RJ Cronkite, if anyone knows him. And instantly it was just like, he's sitting there. If you're on his team, he's going to do everything he can, but he has high expectations. And from the benefit standpoint, you have somebody that's been there that has these, high standards, and they really throw that on you, and you gain a ton of, knowledge from that.
Thank you, Tom. Any other follow-ups to that?
Well, the only follow-up I would have to that is the importance of selecting the right person to be your mentor. So you have to have that connection that Tom just mentioned with the person and that symbiotic relationship so that they're going to, help you and you're going to help them. But there's so many benefits to it as a judge. And I'm retired now, although they called me judge. I'm retired now. But even your law clerks, the people that the judges mentor as their law clerks, they go out into the practice, they grow their practice, they become great lawyers. The benefits of mentorship on both ends, I think, are extraordinary. And I think as a profession, we underestimate it a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
Can I just chime in there one more time?
Yeah.
Judge Popke mentioned the young lady that eventually became a judge. My first hire at the Oakland County Circuit Court was Kamisha Gant. Okay. So hopefully, I was able to mentor her a little bit, and then she goes out into the world and then eventually becomes a judge. So now she's a colleague, right? And now we have a collegial relationship in that way. So there's definitely a tremendous amount of upside. And the thing I would say for both mentors and mentees is that you grow when you're stretching to go a little bit higher than what you've done before. So if you're if you're possibly a mentor, but you've never done it, well, when you start to mentor somebody, you're going to grow, and that's going to make you a better person and reach your better potential, aim higher. Same thing for the mentee. Always think about trying to aim higher and how can I be like the person that's mentoring me, or maybe even exceed them. So
thank you.
I would just
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so sorry because this is such an important topic. I just have one more quick thing to add. And, Clark Hill DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion is so important. And I would just say, as a mentor, when you're looking to informally, let's just say, mentor somebody, really think about mentoring somebody who's not just like you. Think about mentoring somebody who perhaps is different. Maybe they don't come from your socioeconomic background. Maybe they didn't go to your law school. Maybe they didn't grow up where you grew up. I think it's so important to make sure that when you're mentoring, that you're not just picking people that are like you, that you're comfortable with. So I would just say that the rewards for both you and the mentee can be significant.
That is a great point, and it actually leads nicely into our next topic, which is, and I'm going to pick on Charles for this one. What can you do to gain access to a mentor if you want to be a mentee?
If you want to be a mentee, what can you do to gain access to a mentor? So law firms set these programs up. I want to make a distinction between formal and informal, if I can go in that direction. Law firms set these programs up, and they sometimes work, sometimes don't. And I would like to say to the law firm managers in the room, before I forget this point, if something's not working, end it. And that's incumbent on the law firms and the law firm managers to step in, because there is a tendency in law firms to think that good lawyers are good at everything, and they're not. And so recognizing people with talent and time, they're willing to put in the time to mentorship is absolutely critical. But back to the formal, informal distinction. So if you're an associate in a law firm and you're assigned a mentor and that relationship is playing itself out, that's great. But I've found the most valuable relationships to be in the informal, on the informal side. Someone who was not in my practice group, who we hit it off, and they had an entirely different practice than me, an entirely different set of clients and issues that they dealt with. And getting that perspective, I think, really helped me mature as a lawyer, and then as a mentor myself later. So I would, and the advice you get is different. You'll find people have different paths in the law firm. They've had different experiences, and they have something to share. So I had a mentor when I was coming through as an associate who was in the corporate practice and did a lot of, sort of borrower side stuff, and nothing that I was running around, filing discovery motions all the time and doing doc review and all the stuff that first year said. But it was just so interesting to hear about his practice and to hear about the problems he faced and the way, in the different challenges. And then later, those corporate partners have a client with a problem, and guess who's first on their thinking of who do I give this case to, right? So I would encourage the younger lawyers, make as many of those kinds of informal relationships as you can. So
thank you, Charles. Any other tips and tricks to gaining access to a mentor?
Well, of course, I think you raise a really good point, Charles, that being a mentor it means having the senior partners in your firm look to you for work. Because if they're looking to you for work, then that's going to grow your practice, and it goes all the way around. But as far as mentors, outside the law firm, I think you just have to ask. You would be surprised. I had a young woman who was wanted to build a mediation practice, and she just called me up one day and said, "Hey, would you like to go out to lunch?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And that started kind of a mentor relationship and the connection she needed with the bench to help her build her mediation practice. So everybody always says, just ask. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen is no. So, if you've seen somebody and you'd like to, maybe have them, it doesn't mean it has to be a permanent relationship, but you just want to have lunch with someone who you think can give you good advice. Just ask. Call me, 734-32.
We'll take you up on that, Judge Popke. Any other follow-ups?
The only thing I would add is that how do you know who to ask? Well, if you're stuck in your office all day and you don't go out to symposiums like this one, you're going to have a very limited universe. So be out active in the community. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a law mentor. It can be somebody else in the world. Some of my mentors are not lawyers, but they've been very valuable. How did I meet them? I either had unique jobs or I met them at various events, and then you see them 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden you say, like Judge Popke said, "Hey, let's go to lunch one time," or what's your cell phone? I want to talk to you, pass an idea by you, and then you develop a relationship. The cold call, that's a little hard sell, but the networking, the person you've seen 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, I should really, we have something in common that I think helps quite a bit.
Thank you very much, Judge Warren. Any other follow-ups on that one?
Yeah, for senior trial lawyers, all you have to do is find out some trial they worked on and say, "Hey, tell me about the Taco Bell case."
That's great advice, actually. Okay, so I'm going to...
Hi, Linda. This is PJ. We do have some questions in the chat box. This one comes to us from Denise. She asks, do you think that mentorships should be a formal part of the legal education, almost like residences are in the medical profession?
Well, I think that's called a clerkship, but I'll throw that to the group if anyone has a comment on that, because the clerkship and a mentorship are a little different, right?
Yeah, my first reaction to that is I wouldn't want someone too tied to one person, if that's what that implies. But
I think it's remember the good old days for people here that are a little bit older, when we were young and we would have, you would do the research for the litigation, and then maybe you would be a second chair, and then you would work your way up to a first chair. On the bench, I rarely saw that during the last 10 to 15 years. Usually it was just the trial lawyer, and there wasn't an associate who was learning the wiles of the courtroom through second chairing. And frankly, I would like to see a little bit more of that. Maybe it's not as billable these days because we're more cost efficient, but I, as a judge, would like to have seen this whole concept of first chair and second chair be a little bit more consistent throughout the last 10 years, because I think it helps develop those young lawyers. And one of the things that it was very nice, but happened to me when I was on the bench, because I had a habit of talking a lot, which you can tell tonight I still do. But young lawyers would come in and they would just sit in my courtroom on Friday mornings because they said there was always something to learn. So I think young lawyers are craving more responsibility and more mentorship. But I would ask Tom that if that's true.
Yeah, I when it comes to having an actual formal program, I think it falls on the mentee and the person looking to grow in the practice. It's tough. Everyone's busy, and I remember doing red lines for a first year earlier this year, and it took forever. And then you start thinking how many times people have done that for you. And so really what it comes down to is, do you need like a residency program? You can take the deposition skill workshops and everything in law school, but I think I learned more practicing law in the first week of practicing law than I did through law school and bar exam prep combined. But I think it falls more on the mentee to actually have that drive and to want to do it and go out and make it happen for them.
Thanks, Tom. Any other follow-ups?
I would add that, not everybody knows how to be a mentor, right? It's not necessarily innate for any of us, at least not maybe the whole picture. And I would really encourage law firms to have more of a formal training for mentors, because then you get more consistency in your program. And if you don't have a formal program, or if you're just interested in being a better mentor, there's all kinds of guidebooks out there. There is a really cool book. There's a couple of them out there, and they're for mentors. And there's some for mentees. And it's 100 questions to ask your mentor, or 100 questions to ask your mentee. And I think just investing in yourself, if you're a mentee, and maybe investing in your mentorship program, if you're a law firm, or if you're a partner and you want to be a steward of the practice, those are really easy things to do, and they don't take a lot of time. So I would just make that recommendation. I've looked at some of those things. I have the 100 question book, and it's really great because you may not ask all 100, you won't ask all 100 questions, but at least it gives you a little bit more to work on than what you might think.
I would just add a couple things real quick. The question was, should there be a formalized process? I would say no. We've got enough micromanagement and mandates and requirements in education in the law. We don't need to throw in another one. And for a mentorship to really work, it needs to be genuine and sincere. And so if it's kind of like the forced community service that some kids have to do, right? If it's required, then it's not volunteer work. So I think a mentor-mentorship relationship needs to be one that's genuine and is not kind of part of a program, because then you'll have a lot that are just kind of, they're just going through the motions. So I would be strongly against that.
That's a great point, Judge. Any other follow-ups, or should I move on to the next topic? Okay, moving on. So this is a good one. This is one of my favorites, and I can't wait to hear what everyone has to say. Has everyone, maybe some folks in the audience, have seen a movie called How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days? Yeah, Kate Hudson. Okay, well, how about How to Lose a Mentorship in 10 Days? Can we talk about some stories, some what not to do's? The topic is How to Lose a Mentorship in 10 Days, and I'm going to pick on Linda Watson to start this one off.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did see that movie. I would say don't show up for your meetings, your scheduled meetings with your mentor. Don't do that a couple of times, and that's just really getting off to a bad start. If you're going to make a commitment, and you should have a schedule, and I like to preload those into the calendar for the year. Maybe it's every quarter. Maybe it's more often. If it's an informal relationship, it's a situation where you're going to show up at one another's door or pick up the phone. But if you do have a scheduled meeting, really honor that and make sure you attend it, or at least reschedule it if it doesn't work. But not showing up is not good.
That sounds key. Any follow-ups to Linda's comments?
Yeah. So I won't disclose the person, but I had somebody that came to me and said, I really admire you. I want to be your mentor or mentee. Would you mentor me? And I said, sure. And I knew her, just one of these people from the networking kind of thing. And we had very different perspectives in, the kind of the political realm and that kind of stuff, but it didn't matter to me. I was happy to help her. I gave her all kinds of advice. And then she came to me and said, I've got this really important thing to talk to you about. So we talked about it, spent a long time. And I said, these are all the reasons you shouldn't do this. You can do it if you want, but I would not recommend it. So of course she did it. And then she came back a few weeks later or a couple months later and had a very similar conversation. I said, these are all the reasons you shouldn't do this. And then she did it again. And I'm like, okay, what's the point of this? I mean, she is a person of free will. I totally understand that, but it was obvious that she really wasn't there to listen, but was there to promote. And that's when I realized this is not serving the point of a mentorship.
Thank you, Judge. Any others?
Well, one of the things that Judge Warren said earlier, which I think is true, is you can't cold call to get a mentor. That sounds like it was a little bit of a cold call on his, but I had a student from Wayne State just call up and say, I've decided I want Judge Popke to be my mentor. Can I have lunch with her on Tuesday? And I'm like, what? Didn't even have any idea who this person was. So I think you do have to have some introduction first and the encouragement of attending events like this one, or that for the young lawyers or the barristers, something where you get to meet somebody. You can't just look up who you want your mentor to be in a book and think it's going to work out.
Thank you, Judge. Anyone else? Okay, we have just a few minutes left. And for our last topic, and I'm going to pick on Tom, what about specifically, so we're talking about how you could lose a mentorship. What are the ground rules of a mentorship relationship? Are there any? How do you figure them out?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, if you're looking for that mentor-mentee relationship and you're coming in from the mentee side, you really want to be open to that feedback. Sometimes feedback is painful. Sometimes you hear things you don't want to hear, but these people, these mentors are really trying to help you grow. They've been there, they've been where you're at. And so when you get the paper that's all read and you get drilled on questions and drilled on sentences and why'd you do this, you have to be ready and open to that feedback. And I think you see a lot of deflection and then people just ignore advice. And if you make a mistake, that's fine. Don't make this the same mistake twice is kind of what I try and do. And that will help facilitate that relationship. And when you start, there is a little bit of trust issues. Everyone has them. But when you start growing and taking that feedback and it becomes more of a transactional relationship with everyone, I think you really grow your program and your mentorship opportunities.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments on ground rules? Well, all right. I think that's it for our mentorship roundtable.
I guess I'm sorry. Just one I think really important ground rule is normally it's confidential. The advice is not supposed to be, hey, I just had lunch with Judge Popke and she told me this, and tweet it and Facebook. It's supposed to be a personal relationship where confidences can be had. So you can have that open dialogue. So if you are being hypercritical, it stays there. having an argument, it stays there, or however it works. I think that's really, really important.
Thank you, Judge. Any other comments? Okay, thank you to all of our panelists on the Mentorship Roundtable.